So why should you not learn solely with native speakers, right? I know that, and even for myself, like learning with native speakers is something that is just always there and pushed on us as language learners, right? Because we learn from native speakers. That's how we learn language for the most part. But something that people really miss, and even that I have learned through because I've experimented with both, like, it's not that these people are not native speakers that I learn with. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But the key here is just not to focus on learning only with native speakers because of them being native speakers, if that makes sense. Because just because someone is a native speaker does not mean that that is someone that you want to learn your language from. And, you know, they can be a native speaker and they can have an excellent level of that language, but you can also come across someone who's a native speaker who does not have that great command of the language, of speaking well, of writing well, of whatever it is that you're learning. So the key here is, are native language speakers good to learn from, right? And in some contexts they are, but what it really comes down to is, what are your goals with learning your language, right? So if your goals are to be able to like speak in casual conversations on the street, and you don't care about how well do I speak, how is my grammar, how is my pronunciation, all of that, because if you're a native speaker, like, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna make native mistakes, and the mistakes are going to vary from speaker to speaker. But if your goal is that you want to have a professional level of fluency, if your goal is that you want to just have a very high level in that language, and even if your goal is that you want a casual level of speaking, but you want to do it at an expedited rate, or you just want to do it like you just want to understand the language, your time is better spent working with someone like a tutor or a teacher, or even going through a course, yes, but really that one-on-one approach, or even in groups, like that is how you really develop that fluency, because you can work with native speakers, like you can practice. It's a component of this, but it is by no means like if you go and talk with native speakers every day that you're going to be fluent, or that you're going to know the language well. Because yes, you're getting that practice in, but you're not getting any corrections. Usually, right? Most people aren't going to say like, hey, don't say that way. Whereas like if you work with a tutor or a teacher of some kind, you're going to get those corrections, and you're going to get that feedback, and that's going to allow you to progress so much more quickly. So right about now is when people start thinking like, okay, well, it's so much cheaper to work with than to just, you know, practice for free, to get a language partner, to do all of that. It is, and it isn't, right? Because it is, but you're getting, for the most part, your quality is going to be not that of working with a teacher, unless you are fortunate enough to, you know, partner with a teacher. And it's going to take you longer if you do it that way. You're going to be practicing, you're going to struggle more, and you're just going to be going through that process. And I've been there. I've tried this approach as well. And I've also worked with teachers and tutors, and I prefer working with a specialist, working with a tutor or someone like that, because basically it's like that, yes, it does cost more, but it really doesn't if you are trading, you know, if you think about how you're trading time and money. So when I was working just with like, you know, just with conversation partners, I was progressing, but not nearly as much as I was progressing when I was working with a teacher. So for me, it's so much more worth it to pay to work with a tutor, you know, to pay, you know, $30, $40 an hour, whatever it is, to work with a tutor, or of course less, like, you know, 15 or whatever it is, even if they're like just like a teacher in training or whatever it is. Instead of spending so many hours working with like a language partner, I've spent fewer hours working with a teacher or a tutor, and that progress that I make in that time is so much more. So my time is just used so much more productively, so much more efficiently. And it's worth it to me because, you know, as someone who who works, who has a business, who does all of this, like, I would much rather just spend a little bit of money to have that progress in a shorter amount of time than I would to spend my time, which essentially is my money, because I could be spending that time instead doing things that contribute to my business or my work or whatever it is. So it really depends on where you are and like how you want to progress, how much time you have, and the resources that you have available to you. It's very much just something that you have to decide for yourself. Like, I have this amount of time that I want to spend on language, and I have this work that I need to do. So then you can make that trade-off, and you also can do, you know, some kind of a blended approach if that's what you want to do. I mean, that's really ideal for most things. Is anytime when you go completely one way or the other, you're pretty much missing out on something. That's why even like if you work with a teacher or you work with a tutor or you work with, you know, you even go way up and you like work with a coach, then but you don't do your work on your own, you don't do your own practice, you are missing those components where you need to be somewhere in the middle on that spectrum there. Because even if you work with a teacher, it doesn't mean that that teacher is like pouring all the information into your head. So those of the people who we see who are just like, teach me everything, like, it doesn't work that way. And that's why I think people do see like, oh, I'm gonna progress more when I just talk to people, when I just talk with native speakers, because they are using the language. But if you instead shift that mindset to, okay, I'm gonna work with a teacher to practice and get corrections, and then I'm going to apply that to when I speak with people casually, like still getting that practice with speakers of that language, whether native or not, it really doesn't matter. I mean, none of us are born speaking any language. So it's just someone who knows that language, getting that practice, and then also, you know, of course, you're reading and writing because all of it contributes, then you're going to elevate your level of your language. So it's not about like saying, oh, I'm going to work with a tutor, I'm going to work with a teacher, I'm going to do whatever this is, and I'm just going to do whatever they tell me to do. I'm going to do, you know, I'm going to meet with them this many times, and I'm just going to have language. And it's also not about saying, I'm going to practice with native speakers, I'm going to just, you know, do conversation practice on my own, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be fine, like, I don't need to be told what to do, whatever it is. It's about finding that balance between those two ends. So yeah, so you want to be somewhere in between. And where you are, like whether you're closer to the teacher end or closer to like the cheaper end, you know, you just are practicing and you have time to use for that, then that's perfectly fine. But you do need to have some kind of component of instruction and practice, even if you're in a class, because that's why people are not successful in classes like in college or in high school or whatever it is with language classes, is because they don't have that practice element. And at least from my own experience, I'm speaking from, that as like going through high school classes and college classes, that when I actually started to be successful in those was when I did a significant amount of practice on my own, whether it is practicing with people or practicing like online, just speaking and, you know, like, or recording myself or whatever it is, like, that's where the improvement comes. So you need that structure, that curriculum, and then you need that practice. All right, that is it for this. And as always, feel free to leave comments and questions down below, and I will see you guys back here next time. Bye.